All right, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my name is James Tulp. I'm a candidate for Congress, Republican primary, Mississippi District 3. The primary is March 10th. I taught at Mississippi College for a few years, taught the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, American government to undergraduates, and I was also the host of a political talk show in the Jackson metro area. So I was covering the issues facing our nation, facing our state very closely. It was a call-in show, so I was interacting a lot with the citizens in the area, and we were just having a back and forth, talking about the issues, talking about what is not being addressed that needs to be addressed, talking about things that maybe are happening in Washington that shouldn't be happening, and that's basically in a nutshell how I came to the decision to run for Congress.
Okay. Could you expand upon the issues? What are some of the issues that you're focusing on?
So broadly speaking, what I think we really need and what I think the citizens of Mississippi want is representation and good governance that's loyal to the citizens, all the citizens of the district, not just a select group of power brokers in Washington. And when the seat opened up in 2018, really anybody you can ask anybody, the seat was essentially handed down as a political favor. It wasn't really a fair race. The citizens, the voters, didn't really get to have a fair say in who their next representative was going to be. So when that's the case, your loyalty as a representative is not going to be to the citizens at large, it's going to be to that small group of people. So we're running for everybody. We need representation that's accountable to the voters, to the citizens at large. And then another thing, more specifically, is the immigration issue. 80% of Americans, actually this was a Harvard poll that came out, 80% of Americans across party lines want less immigration than what we have right now. Yet every single year, more and more, we keep getting more and more immigration, and this harms American citizens by taking jobs away. It harms American citizens by depressing wages, and that's just really not representing the interests of citizens. So again, that's why I'm running, to represent the interests of citizens. That's what I think the moral duty of a representative is to do. And then lastly, I think Mississippi needs strong conservative leadership willing to fight with President Trump, willing to fight for strong conservative values. I think we need somebody in the House Freedom Caucus, which we don't have right now, and somebody who's really willing to go on offense, ruffle some feathers if need be, make some enemies if need be, but stand up and fight for our values.
Okay. Yeah. I know that around here, one of the big issues is infrastructure.
Yes, that's one of my big issues as well. Infrastructure is something that affects everybody and something that everybody benefits for. And it's also a great area where, we're in a very divided time right now politically. Republicans and Democrats very far apart. Infrastructure is one area where I really think we can come together on and have bipartisan support for. So I'm a big proponent of infrastructure. President Trump has talked about it. Democrats in Congress have talked about it. I think we need strong leadership. But again, we need to make sure when something like this happens that parts of the state that historically have been forgotten about are not forgotten about. A lot of the focus is on the Jackson metro area. A lot of the focus is on maybe DeSoto County in the north or maybe the coast. There are some really, really great parts of the state, like where we're at right now, southwest Mississippi as well, that I think have been forgotten about by representation and decisions made out of Washington. So infrastructure is a great opportunity for us to shore up manufacturing base, to help citizens, and again, all citizens, not just those who are politically connected.
I know you mentioned a little bit about immigration.
Yeah.
What do you see as the best solution to solving the immigration problem?
So I think we need skills-based immigration. Right now, about 70 to 75% of the legal immigrants who come over here come via chain migration, which basically just means that they have some sort of connection to somebody who's already here, and it's not just immediate family. It could be cousins, uncles, second cousins, all that. It's 70 to 75%. I think that's way too high. I think most Americans agree on that. But really, just broadly speaking, we're a sovereign nation. We get to decide who can come into this country and who can't. Nobody else can tell us how we should make those decisions. So I think broadly speaking, when we're crafting an immigration policy, the number one question should be, does this benefit American citizens? Because again, that's who you work for if you're a representative in Washington.
Now, we had a little. We had the ice raids over in Scott County and other places throughout the state, and one of the one of the talking points in our area has been the employer's liability for hiring illegal workers. Do you feel that is something that should be addressed? Or?
100%. 100%. I mean, that's where the blame lies. It's the employers. I mean, I really don't blame people trying to go anywhere to advance themselves, right? I don't blame them for that. But when there's an opportunity, when you have companies who knowingly and routinely, as a matter of practice, hire illegal aliens, by definition illegally, they need to be held accountable. And the way the law is written right now, it's really not a matter of enforcement, because I think U.S. Attorney Hurst and ICE did a great job enforcing the law, but I think we need to craft legislation to put more teeth into holding the employers accountable, because that's largely why there's so much demand for illegal immigration coming here, because they know that they're going to be able to work, they know that they're going to be able to get higher wages than they can get wherever they're coming from. Those are tough jobs, and you hear a lot of times, oh, well, American citizens don't want to do those jobs. No, they had a job fair like less than a week after the raids. 200 American citizens, mostly black American citizens, by the way, showed up at that job fair. The difference is we can't expect, nor should we try to, expect American citizens to compete with people from third world countries for wages. If you're from a country where you're used to making $2 a day, and then you come to America and you have the opportunity to make a federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, that's like striking gold. But if you're an American citizen, you're going to have a tough time finding people to do these jobs for $7.25 an hour. But I mean, people forget, it wasn't until relatively recently that the chicken industry in Mississippi was staffed by majority American citizens. And I'm talking on the line, I'm talking the dirty jobs. So I don't believe that Americans just won't do these jobs. I do believe that Americans won't do the jobs for the same wage as somebody from a third world country. But to answer your question, yes, we need to hold the employers accountable. Right now, I think they're just getting slaps on the wrist, which is not good enough.
Okay. And I wanted to ask you, kind of going back to the infrastructure, but just a little bit different, would be the telecom and more importantly, rural internet. And do you have any idea of how to address that?
This is crucial, yeah. So I work in radio. That was my background. So the company I worked for, the station I worked for, had a lot of business with the FCC. Chairman Ajit Pai, I think, is doing a fairly good job in that role. What we need to do is we need to strongly encourage the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, to expand broadband rural internet. This is a crucial issue as far as being competitive, as far as helping small businesses, and really just helping people stay connected in rural areas. Again, it comes back to not letting the people of our state be forgotten about just because they don't happen to live in the Jackson metro area. So that's something we need to very strongly fight for, and quite frankly, not take no for an answer.
I know personally one issue that it's been something that I've been concerned with is obviously the growing national debt as it is, our growing deficits and things like that. And so I guess what's kind of your views on that, and what are some things that can be done to try to help
It's a huge concern of mine as well. You look at how much money we spent in the Middle East, for example. We've spent $8 trillion there since the Afghanistan and Iraq war. That's just simply not sustainable. And again, you look at something like infrastructure, right, where we're talking about how many closed and shut down bridges throughout the state of Mississippi. Meanwhile, we're building bridges in Afghanistan. This is what I'm talking about when I say we need to make decisions that benefit American citizens, not anybody else. I mean, that should be our priority. So I think we do need to largely pull back from the Middle East. I think our southern border is still not secured. I would like to see more of our defense spending going towards the southern border and not someplace 5,000, 8,000 miles away.
And also, like on the economy as well, tariffs has been an issue.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of see that expanded or contracted a little bit, or
so I'm not dogmatically, I would say, opposed to tariffs like some in the Republican Party are, and they just sort of like worship at the altar of free trade and any tariff is bad no matter what. If that's the case, if you were to take off and say no matter what, tariffs are always bad, other countries around the world will eat you for lunch. I mean, they will take advantage. You need to use them. They're a tool. They're not an end in and of themselves, but tariffs can be used as a very valuable tool to protect American citizens, to protect American workers. NAFTA, which actually President Trump today just signed the new USMCA, which I think was a very good positive step in the right direction. But I think NAFTA is a good example of what would happen when leadership in Washington just allows corporations to get access to as much cheap labor as possible. What happens is you see a lot of towns with main streets that are 80% abandoned. You see manufacturing leaving the heartland in droves. You see people on the coast and the financial centers like on Wall Street get extremely wealthy because it's obviously very good for corporations' bottom line and for shareholders, but the middle of the country gets completely left behind. Mississippi has lost almost 100,000 manufacturing jobs since the year 2000. That's 40% of our manufacturing work base. And when you drive through the small towns, you see that. I mean, you see main streets largely abandoned. You see the opioid crisis and drug problems and crime problems creep in as a result. You see families torn apart, divorce rates going up as a result of that. So I do think tariffs can be a useful tool to protect American workers and protect American small towns.
Now with healthcare, rural healthcare has. We had the hospital in Newton had to close, and there have been several other hospitals throughout the state that have closed. And there's different viewpoints on how to handle that through the scholarship program, expanding Medicaid. What are your thoughts on how we save and improve rural healthcare?
I think there are a lot of things that can come out of Washington. It's a state. You got that state issue, you got the federal issue. It's up to the state whether or not they want to expand Medicaid or not. We'll see about that. But from where I'm running, to, Congress, I think, should pass a law that will allow people to buy insurance across state lines. Open it up to competition, because that's the biggest problem. I think with a lot of people, is premiums are just ridiculously expensive. Insurance premiums are ridiculously expensive, and deductibles are no better. When you have so few options because of the way the laws are written, where you can't buy health insurance across state lines, almost by definition, prices are going to go up. So we need to make sure that hospitals are staying open, that everybody has good quality access to healthcare, and that's just one of the many ways that we can do that.
One thing that's actually surprisingly become an issue here has been the medical marijuana proposition that's been brought forward. And so, what's kind of your thoughts on that, as far as it being legal, something that we may need to be addressed nationally?
Yeah, nationally, it's a weird issue because it's still technically illegal nationally. It's still a Class C drug, I think, or something, whatever it is nationally. But basically, how it's been handled is through what do they call it? Prosecutorial discretion for the United States Department of Justice. They just haven't been prosecuting states that decide to legalize it. So I believe it is a state issue. So federally speaking, I think it should be left up to the states. I taught the Constitution of Mississippi College. You read the 10th Amendment. It says that basically anything that's not explicitly laid out in the Constitution is left up to the states or to the people. I think medical marijuana certainly falls into that category. So I think it should be left up to the states.
And on the legal versus legal topic, on the criminal justice reform, and I know Trump has done some bills, and there's been some state bills as well. Do you see any steps that need to be made, or anything that you would like to do?
I do. I think that the entire bipartisan conversation on criminal justice reform over the last couple of years has been completely ignoring one crucial voice, and that's the voice of the victims. I think that there's been a lot of focus on letting criminals out of jail earlier and maybe making certain things legal that are currently illegal. And I think that if you are the victim or your loved one is the victim, especially of a violent crime, I think that a lot of these people would be whistling quite a different tune So I think that we do need to actually take seriously into account the rights of victims and making sure that criminals are prosecuted and punished. And look, I'm a Christian. I believe Romans 13 says that, paraphrasing Romans 13, governments are instituted by God to do many things, but one of them is to punish the wicked. They can be used by God as a tool to punish the wicked, and I think that we're not yet completely, but I think we're sort of trending away from that. And maybe it's a way to save money by not putting people in jail. Maybe it's a way to get voters, right? You hear about the Democrats talking about restoring voting rights to felons, and some Democrats running for president have literally said that we need to let half of the prisoners in America out of jail, just indiscriminately. I think that's absolutely insane. Actually, I think it's a great way to ruin a country from within if that's what you're trying to do. So, but by and large, I think we need to really focus on the victims and making sure that we get justice for the victims, which means punishing the wicked.
I guess talk a little bit about how you are going to be different from what Michael Guest has been doing for the last couple of years here. Yeah,
so I think the Republican Party needs to start looking to the future. I think that the old party of John Boehner types, I think, is a losing strategy for Republicans. And really what I'm talking about is a new America First Republican Party that puts the interests of citizens first, that's actually looking out for Main Street more so than Wall Street. And again, this means loyal to the citizens. This means fighting for fair trade deals. This means for fighting for lower taxes for average working American citizens, not just corporations, although I do like the corporate tax cut to make us competitive, but I think we actually need to start being more for the people. I think the marriage between the Republican Party and corporate America has not really worked out for Main Street, has not worked out for blue-collar workers. So that's what I think I'm representing, the new Republican Party that's more pro-blue-collar workers, pro-manufacturing, still very much in favor of capitalism, still very much, I would say actually more so in favor of preserving traditional conservative values, but crafting a system economically that works for everybody, not just people who are well-connected and well-financed lobbyists.
I have actually wanted to go back to the talking about the victims in that. Yeah. I know one of the issues that we have noticed locally here has been the ability for police departments, for law enforcement to be able to enforce, things like fines, things like as far as keeping criminals behind bars and things like that. That there's been a lot of issues about how to handle that, and it feels like at times law enforcement's hands are tied with a lot of issues like that. So what do you think that Congress could do to possibly help like local law enforcement to be able to enforce the law, and also to be able to help collect on fines and things like that?
Yeah. So I'll go back to U.S. Attorney Mike Hurst. I think he's doing a phenomenal job. I think he's one of, if not the best U.S. attorneys we've had. He's doing this great Project Eject, which when local cities and counties are embracing this, they're seeing crime go down. So that's just one way. There are different things you can encourage the Department of Justice to do to help local law enforcement. I'm a big believer that the people closest to the problem are most suited to solve that problem. So I don't believe that some bureaucrat in Washington is going to come down to Union and say, hey, here's exactly what y'all need, and this is the way it's going to be, and you're welcome. I think that we need to let the localities, let the municipalities and the counties take the lead on these things, but have support from the federal government to solve issues like crime.
And I wanted to ask you a little bit about we have a state bill right now, red flag law, and then we just had a shooting at a gas station down in Newton on Sunday night, and people in Newton County, there's hunting, fishing, very, very protective of the Second Amendment rights. So how can we protect the Second Amendment and but also kind of stop some of this violence.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes. First of all, here's why I don't. Let me tell you why I don't like red flag laws. I'm against them. I think they are unconstitutional on at least two fronts. The first most obvious being the Second Amendment, but maybe less obvious is that it infringes on a citizen on due process. It basically inverts due process because the way red flag laws work out is your neighbor makes a call and says, "Hey, I think John Smith is crazy and a psycho, and he has a gun. I don't think he should own a gun." Well, if you live in a red flag law state, the cops then come to John Smith's house and say, "Hey, give us your gun," and then after the fact, you prove to us why you're not crazy and why you deserve to have this gun. That's not how our judicial system works. It's never how it works, and for good reason. But as far as how do we balance Second Amendment rights and due process rights with making sure things like that aren't going to happen? Again, I think it goes back to enforcing the law, being tough on crime, not letting criminals back out on the streets. You would be shocked at how many of, and I don't know, I can't speak to this particular case, but you'd be shocked at how many of criminals and people who commit acts like that are repeat offenders, are people who should have been in jail but aren't because of whatever reason. So I think that's how we balance that. But more importantly, I think that especially in rural communities where you might not live within 10 miles of law enforcement, if somebody breaks into your house in the middle of the night, you're just gonna call the cops and hope that they get there in time? No, I mean, that's, in many places cops aren't gonna be able to get there for 20, 30, 45 minutes, and it's on you to protect your family. And I don't think it's the government's right. Actually, I think it would be immoral for the government to say, "Oh no, we don't trust you to protect your family, so good luck, you call us when you need it." No, it doesn't work like that.
Okay.
You have more questions?
I think that's all the questions I have. So.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I would love to know. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. Just anything specifically about Union County needs or anything like that specific. We talked about rural broadband. We talked about infrastructure. Anything else?
Well, I know that we have a specific case of a bridge down in Chunky.
Okay.
And that has caused quite a bit of waves. It's a federal bridge. The previous supervisor dug up the approach to the bridge because he was ordered the state ordered it closed. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's in bad shape. Yeah. But it's also we have residents trapped between that bridge on one side and railroad tracks on the other, and there are instances where the train has stopped and they can't get in and out. Wow. And if somebody needed emergency services, they would not be able to get in.
And this sounds like what I'm talking about when I say certain parts of the state sometimes just get forgotten about. And
this came up last week, as in another way.
In Emmett County, yeah, something similar happened with flooding in Emmett County. I mean, people were literally stuck, and like sounds like is the case here. So I mean it's a federal bridge.
Yes.
There's no reason why that shouldn't be fixed. Again, when we're building and then bombing and then building literally hundreds of bridges in Afghanistan, I really don't like hearing, "Oh well, sorry, Newton or Union, you're gonna have to wait." That's unacceptable to me.
I know specifically I can say a lot of the local schools here, I know it seems like they're beginning to invest a lot more in like career tech education and stuff like
yes.
that. Is that something?
I love that. Yeah, I think that we've gotten away from that much to our detriment. We've got a great community college system for skills training and all that. Maybe one of the best, if not the best, in the entire country, but I think we need to start younger. I think that we need to, and the federal government can help with that. U.S. Department of Education can give out vouchers for skills training, for skills programs, because again, the manufacturing potential is here. We've got industrial parks, we've got a great community college system, we've got a very able labor force, but I think it starts with training in high school. So that's actually a huge part of the plan. I would say that the three-pronged plan to bring manufacturing back would be reduce immigration, education with regards to skills training, infrastructure, Those would be the three. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and well, actually, the trade deals would be the three-part. Really is trade deals, infrastructure, education. Immigration actually would be somewhat connected, but separate issue. But yeah, education, infrastructure, education for manufacturing. Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
I think we covered a lot, and I enjoyed it. Yeah, please, if y'all have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate. I'll give
You could tell what your website is.
Oh yeah, website is jamestulp.com, TULP. Also, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and that's at jamestulp, TULP.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank y'all. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it.